we haven't seen these things happening in the past. So from the past trends, the last time I think they introduced the ECB, that was a good move. And I think if this budget they can increase the norms of the quantum of the ECB which is permissible, will be much better, because the amount they have allowed last year was too small. So, but that's very good things for the affordable housing. The expectations should be something like that. If they can allow some kind of a provisions through which they can have some motivations brought in for the end user or the first time buyers. So there could be an income tax rebate for the first time home buyer, which could be more than what is being allowed till now, 1,50,000 rupees or 1,80,000 rupees, more than that if they bring in for the first time home buyers. And besides that, I also feel so that it's a time, because the way the bubbles are being created and most of the property is being targeted to the investors, and my problem of cash flow is increasing because the prices are going up and sales are going down, and most of the property is being sold to the investors. To this, the government has to start looking into the needy and to whom the housing is required, and for that probably they should do a provisioning for dissuading the investors. So maybe a differential provisioning. So for the first time home buyer, they can bring in the rebates in the income tax, or they make it more motivating for them, while they can start putting higher provisioning for the investors who are buying third property, fourth property, fifth property, because that is very important. Today scenarios are like that, when we are on one side talk about so many people require housing, 2 million houses required for Mumbai, and you then on the hindsight you see that you can't even sell 30,000 units in a year, and we have got unsold inventory lying as high as 17,000 units. Then you see that there's something is wrong, because what is being sold is sold only to the investors, and since the stock is being sold to the investors, you are bound to keep on increasing the prices, because these investors are buying the profit, not the house. So there has to be balance brought in for the urban economics, and in that sense it's very important today. The government should really wake up and think and say that if the real estate is very important for the growth of the economy, so they should ensure the policies and the measures which enhances the productivity. Today's policies are becoming unproductive. My investors are purchasing the property, they are looking at the profits. The needy is not really getting houses, because the needy is being outplaced because they can't afford the prices. Those who are buying the properties are buying fourth property, fifth property, those are lying vacants. So very important thing is that and since cash flow is these guys don't pay the installment if there is a downside pressure, so your construction is getting delayed. If the construction is getting delayed, your allied industry is also started suffering. So you look at, there has to be a measure where pricing and efficiency in the system has to be brought in, and in that sense there has to be a very large level thinking required, and we need to think and say that housing is a need and we want to cater, but do we want to cater, or are we catering? We are not catering to them. 90% of stock is being sold to the people who are buying third property, fourth property, 10th property. Today's, if you look at it, there are not the times when there's no data available. The market values are available, it's being put into the media. There are agencies like us and various other agencies who are collecting all those data. Very simple for the government to look into the agreement values and go back and ask the guy if he finds the agreement values are less than the market values. So this is very simple thing, and we are not selling too many units as such. So if you look at how much of stock being sold in a year across all these places, you would see the 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs properties. And out of 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs property, only in the high-end properties you would find the component to the black is high. So if you look at those aspects, the government wants and has a willingness, they can solve this problem, because the data is being is there with them. They know that when the registration values, they just have to map it with the market value. A lot of times you will see there's a huge discrepancy. If the government want, they can do it, but I don't think so. There is a provision, or there is a willingness to do so. Bringing one more law or one more provisions into the systems would only create more inefficiencies. For affordable housing, certainly it looks good, but nevertheless, along with bringing any kind of such kind of a status into, we need to really enhance the corporate governance, and we should really bring in more systematic efficiencies in the market, where approval process should be expedited, so that things really happen in a manner. We should have more infrastructure getting created, where land becomes more and more efficient than the things is possible. Otherwise, what happens is, like, if you look at, we've been talking about affordable housing for last 6 years, and we have seen only unaffordability in the housing. So just bringing a status to the industry will never really solve the problem of affordable housing. The biggest problem of the affordable housing is that it is being constructed at a place no one wants to go and live, because it's a completely uninhabitable location, and the places where it is required, the land prices are way too high, and it cannot be done. So if you look at the policies and things which happened in past were contrarian to it. If you look at the FDI were brought into the realities to create affordable housing, you look at most of the FDI backed projects are doing only luxury housing, because this money is just going in for purchasing the land, enhancing the values of the land so high that end users cannot afford to purchase at the selling prices. So it's not happening. We brought too much capital into the lands, and that has created unproductive values of the land. So it cannot really happen. So very important aspects is the system efficiency is very important, where approval process can be defined. We require cheaper capital for affordable housing, and in that sense probably ECB has been allowed. But nevertheless, important is to create more infrastructure where more and more land can be brought in, rather than giving infrastructure status to the real estates. So we require more infrastructure to come. If one Trans Harbour link comes in, it will open so much of land which will at the convenient time span of 25 or 30 minutes, where you can do huge amount of affordable housing. You don't require a special status, because we already have so much of population who can afford, and if so much of land is being made available to the developers, huge amount of affordable housing can be done. So I don't think so the status will bring any benefit. Very important is the efficiencies in the systems. It should be, and that's what is the need of it. Like, I agree to that point, and if in case some way they can do the provisioning where like, the interest rates for the affordable housing are brought down, whatever ways, like, you can have differential provisionings for it, like, you can have for luxury homes and the larger size homes, you can have higher interest rates, and the smaller size flats could be at cheaper rates or smaller values of the properties. That can be done. and that's very much important, because large segment of the people are requiring now, like the city, like major problems of affordable housing is in the cities like Mumbai and MMR. If you look at where the weightage average cost of the flat of 4,000 square kilometer of area of MMR region is close to 1 crore 17 lakhs rupees. That means that your minimum income has to be close to 20 lakhs for a person to be able to afford that kind of houses, which is way too high. And that's where, like it's way too high than the average person can really afford. So there has to be moderation which has to come into the prices, and because at these prices nothing is selling. But nevertheless, if I have more land available in the closer by locations, and if the government allows developer to do more and more affordable housing projects and incentivize them, so I think it will be good for the market. I would say that to some extent finance minister also has to change his own stance, and if he wants a restructuring to be done, he should allow the restructuring linked to the sales, linked to the receipts to the developers. What is happening when you do the restructuring done in the past? The developer increase the prices only and they stop selling, and you look back today and say that the situation was just averted for a period of time, and today it has grown and become much bigger. So very important aspects is that, like the restructuring and the debt should be linked to the sales and the receipts, where the developer keeps a check on his prices. He should not make prices unproductive, unaffordable. He should maintain certain cash flows which is required to maintain his own economic balance, and so that these problems should not really occur. These things are very important. Most of the times this restructuring is happening, and then the prices are going up and the securities are revalued, and the further top-up loan is being given, and it's all speculative, because there are fraudulent valuers who are giving you just a new valuations. They're not really seeing that whether those valuations are productive or not. Can you sell at those prices or not? So a lot of things has to be changed. So very important, very simple method to do it. Everything has to be linked to the sales and sales velocities, as well as the constructions and the receipts the developer is. If he is having cash flows, he shows, and then if linking with this, if you allow and give him some relaxation, it's okay. Just for the sake of it, that someone into the problems and you are doing a restructuring and all, I have seen that the past times you did and it failed, and it should not be repeated, because it only spoils the urban economics. I've been seeing, and I'm probably sensing that the corrections is around the corner. It's not a questions right now. We've been looking at probably 1.5 years or so, where we see that market is becoming inefficient and more inefficient, and it's becoming bad to worse. And I completely agree, like we are around the corner where we see the corrections, or maybe a market is at the stage of tipping off, and we may start seeing a negative theta. And probably in the last quarter we have started seeing is that my weighted average rate has come down by -1%, but it shows that there is a negative trends which has started. So I completely agree, because there's no liquidity available. Banks has put in harsh provisioning onto the realty, and they have a right to do so. And since sales are down, PE money is also very limited now. Most of it is towards the exit, or the new money is not really flowing in that particular manner. So you look at the developer will have to look back to the end user and the consumer, and they have to bring down to the prices to bring in the purchasing power parities and meet their affordability. Then only the sales will come. So it is going to take it is looking like it may happen, but nevertheless, since most of the stock has been sold in past to the investors and sold at much higher prices. So developers will find it difficult to even reduce the prices, because they'll have to also bear the wrath of their earlier investors. If they reduce the prices, there's investors definitely going to really come and say that why did you cheat me. So there are structural problems in the realties. That's where you will see the time corrections coupled with slow moderations into the property, and this phenomenon, according to me, should continue for almost 1.5 or 2 years. So you may not see the improvement in the sales coming by reductions in the prices in immediate manner. You may see that probably the market prices will wait the fundamentals to touch it, rather the prices will come down to touch the fundamentals. So that kind of phenomenon and the stage the realty has gone in. And besides that, we have also seen that most of the private equity deals which happened in past, where the developer have mostly cashed them out, so their skin in the projects are very limited. So it's an investor who are stuck, not the developer themselves. So they have encashed themselves. But having said that, having encashed them, they purchase another piece of lands and all those things, or they may have invited. So there is a leverages which has happened. So difficult to say that the trigger will be there and correction will take place like it happened in 2009, post 2008. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be more of a time and price correction combinations. It wasn't a crisis. I would say that people have to understand this was the market when this was a time when the market sold the maximum. Mumbai sold 21 million square feet in first quarter of 2009, which has been the best quarter. So the crisis was in the global economy, but since the money was not there, so the developer will have to look to the consumer and sell, and the cash receipts also was maximum during that period of time. Problem happened post date, when you did the restructuring, when you brought in 48,000 crore rupees of further FDI money. When you brought all this money just goes into the lands, enhances the values of land and outplaces the consumer. So very important aspects is that, realty, one has to understand that the residential real estate sells on the pre-sales. Yeah. Like, developer sells, and then from the receipts he does the constructions. And in that, when you put in so much of money, most of this money goes into the cash outs. And when the cash outs takes place, the valuations goes up so high at which the cash out takes place. The end product outplaces the consumer, and nothing really sells. So very important aspects is that we don't want a costly capital in the realty. We want cheaper capital. So the ECB, which has been introduced the last year, should have been the first thing done in the realty to cater to the affordable housing. Yeah. But we did probably the wrong move first. And besides that, although RBI has stipulated the money should not go or forbids them to invest into the lands, but I am sure that at least 90% of that money has just gone only for lands. It's beyond everyone. At the end of it, today is like, everyone wants the inefficiencies in the system so that everyone can really extract as much as possible. But it's urban economics, like land can produce as much as it can. So if your land fertility is to give you 50,000 rupees per acre, you just can't say that I have changed the land use and I'll bring projects in the outskirts where no one can go and live. You can speculate and say that the selling rate from 1,000 rupees has increased to 3,000 rupees. But eventually, no one goes to live. So the prices has to come down. Every locations, every land has its own defined productivity. But those moderation has to come. So politicians cannot stop it because it's a capital which will lose. Because realty is one thing is that it's a spatial subject which is SPTIAL. What does it mean? That you just can't create anything anywhere. It's a people who will come and be on that particular land to create the demographic of this particular location. And people's mobility is very, very difficult. People live on the basis of, or choose the location on the basis of where their livelihood is. And you just can't really shift the people from one place to another place so easily. So, most of the time I'm seeing that this speculation has been only on the lands. And I'm seeing that there's no fundamentals to those values of the land, because there's no densities. Most of the times out is scarce, and B, they are so far away that human spatial mobilities cannot be influenced so easily. So you look at these lands will lose, and so would be the investors involved with them. Politicians can give you nice stories which they are good at telling, to say that I'll bring this policy and that policy, but that could be only time bound amplitudes. In the longer horizons, it's a law of geography which prevails and will continue to be prevailing.